A billionaire thought he had everything money could, until a single hug from a stranger showed him the true value of love and kindness. David was a man who owned more than most people could ever imagine. He had companies, houses, cars, and money that seemed endless, but none of it gave him the peace or warmth he thought it would. He had been married once, but now he lived alone in his mansion with only his daughter Lily to fill the quiet spaces. Lily was 7 years old, full of energy, laughter, and questions about everything she saw. She was the only person in his life who made him slow down. But even then, David often found himself too caught up in business calls and meetings to really listen. On a Saturday morning, David decided to take Lily to a local park. He wasn't the type of father who usually took her to playgrounds, but Lily had begged all week. She wanted to go somewhere other than the big house with the giant pool and expensive toys. She wanted swings, slides, and other kids. David agreed, partly because he felt guilty about how often he left her with nannies, partly because he thought an hour away from his office might do him some good. He dressed casually, though anyone could still see from the expensive watch on his wrist and the sleek car he drove that he wasn't like the other parents at the park. When they arrived, Lily ran ahead with excitement. She dropped her little backpack near the bench and dashed straight to the swings. David followed more slowly, taking a seat and pulling out his phone. His eyes flicked between emails, stock updates, and messages from his assistants. He told himself he was still being a good father since he had at least brought her here. Lily laughed as she pumped her legs on the swing, calling for him to watch. But his attention kept slipping back to the glowing screen in his hands. After a while, Lily left the swings and went to the monkey bars. She was fearless, climbing up with her small hands gripping tightly. David glanced up, gave her a brief smile, and went back to reading a message about a new deal. That was when it happened. Lily's foot slipped, her hand lost grip, and in a blink she fell onto the sand below. A sharp cry escaped her lips as the shock and pain of the fall hit her. David's heart jumped. But before he could even stand, someone else reached her first. A young woman who had been walking by rushed over and knelt beside Lily. She wore a simple diner uniform, the kind waitresses wore when they were on their lunch break. Her brown hair was tied back, and her face showed pure concern. She didn't hesitate. She pulled Lily gently into her arms, checking her little knees and brushing the sand off her clothes. "It's okay, sweetheart," the woman said softly. "You're all right? That was a scary fall, but you're safe now." Lily's sobs slowed as she felt the warmth of the stranger's hug. She leaned into the woman, clinging tightly as though she had known her forever. The woman rubbed her back, whispering soothing words that calmed her more than anything else could have done. David finally reached them, feeling a strange mix of relief and embarrassment. He was the father, yet a stranger had been the one to comfort his child. He cleared his throat and thanked the woman politely, his voice carrying the coolness of someone used to keeping emotions under control. "I appreciate you helping," he said, trying to sound casual. The woman looked up at him and smiled, shaking her head. "Any child deserves comfort when they're hurt. You don't need to thank me." She turned her attention back to Lily. Wiping away the last of her tears and asking if she wanted to try standing again, Lily sniffled but nodded. Gripping the woman's hand as she stood up, she looked at her father but didn't let go of the stranger. There was something about the warmth in the woman's eyes that made Lily feel safe. A kind of safety she didn't always feel when her father's mind was somewhere else. David stood there, silent for a moment, watching the way his daughter clung to this woman. It made him feel something he hadn't expected: guilt. He realized that he, with all his wealth and power, had not been the one to give Lily what she needed most in that moment: comfort. His instincts had been too slow, his hands too busy holding a phone. Instead of reaching out for his daughter, the woman introduced herself as Emily. She explained she worked at a diner nearby and had only come to the park for a quick walk during her break. Her shift was long, but when she saw Lily fall, she couldn't stop herself from running over. Her voice was simple, kind, and genuine. Not the type of tone people usually used with David. He was used to people being overly polite, cautious, or nervous around him. Emily, however, spoke like any ordinary person would. Lily quickly grew attached. She asked Emily if she would stay a little longer and play with her. Emily chuckled and glanced at David as though asking for permission. David hesitated. Normally, he didn't allow strangers near his daughter, but there was something about Emily that felt different. He found himself nodding, more curious than cautious, as Emily helped Lily dust off her dress and guided her back toward the swings. David stood behind them, watching. He saw his daughter smiling again, laughing even, as if the fall had never happened. The way Emily spoke to her, patient and warm, was something David hadn't seen in a long time. It was effortless, natural, the kind of care that didn't come from money or status but from a genuine heart. For the rest of that afternoon, Lily refused to leave Emily's side. David watched as his daughter held Emily's hand, told her little stories, showed her the slides as if they were best friends. Emily listened to every word, nodding and laughing, giving Lily her full attention. David felt a twist in his chest. He couldn't remember the last time he had listened to his daughter with that much patience. When it was time to go, Lily pouted, not wanting to leave her new friend. She hugged Emily tightly, the same way she had when she first fell. Emily knelt down and promised that if they came back to the park, maybe they'd meet again. Lily brightened at that thought, though David could see the disappointment still lingering in her eyes as he led her back to the car as they drove away. David glanced at his daughter in the rearview mirror. She was smiling softly, clearly thinking about Emily. He gripped the steering wheel tighter, lost in thought. A stranger had comforted his daughter better than he had. That realization stayed with him long after they left the park. That was the day a billionaire father first noticed a waitress who treated his daughter with more warmth than money could ever buy. It was a simple meeting, but David felt it had planted something in his heart, a small, unsettling seed of change. David drove home that afternoon with a quietness he could not explain. Lily sat in the back seat humming a little tune, clutching the small toy she always carried, but her mind was still on Emily. Every few minutes she would say something like, "Daddy, Emily was so nice," or "Did you see how she held my hand?" David nodded each time, but he didn't know what to say. Inside, he was unsettled. He wasn't used to strangers stepping into his life, especially not around his daughter. Yet, there was something about the way Emily had handled the moment at the park that he could not forget. When they got home, Lily ran upstairs to her room. She began drawing a picture with crayons David noticed from the corner of his eye. The drawing was of herself, her father, and Emily, all holding hands. That simple picture made David pause longer than he expected. He thought about how his daughter had connected so quickly with someone they didn't even know. Why? He was her father. He provided her with everything she could possibly want: beautiful clothes, toys, vacations. But when she got hurt, she didn't cling to him. She clung to a stranger. The next morning, Lily asked if they could go back to the park. David had meetings scheduled, but she begged until he gave in. He told his assistant to move the meeting and took Lily instead. He told himself it was only because he wanted her to be happy, but in truth, he was curious to see if Emily would be there again. When they arrived, Lily rushed straight to the swings, her eyes scanning the park. She looked disappointed when she didn't see Emily. David sat on the bench, pretending to check his phone, but really he was watching his daughter. After a while, Lily sighed and said, "Maybe Emily doesn't come here every day." David only nodded, though he felt an odd pang of disappointment himself. But fate had its own timing. Just as they were about to leave, David saw a familiar figure walking toward the playground. Emily, wearing the same diner uniform, carrying a small paper bag, was heading to a shady tree to sit and eat her lunch. Lily spotted her at the same time. Her face lit up, and she ran toward Emily, shouting her name with joy. Emily looked surprised but happy. She knelt down and hugged Lily warmly. "Well, look who it is," she said cheerfully. "I didn't know I'd have company today." David watched the reunion with mixed emotions. He walked over slowly, his usual serious expression on his face. Emily greeted him politely, but without the stiffness most people showed when they recognized who he was. She didn't seem impressed by his expensive clothes or his watch. Instead, she focused on Lily, who immediately began telling her about the drawing she had made at home. David stood there, feeling almost invisible, but he didn't mind as much as he thought he would. In fact, part of him was relieved that someone else could make his daughter so happy. They spent nearly an hour together at the park. Lily insisted Emily push her on the swings, and Emily happily agreed. Her laughter rang out as she played along, her energy matching Lily's. David sat on the bench, watching closely. His phone stayed in his pocket this time. He couldn't help but study the way Emily spoke to Lily softly, with patience and kindness. It wasn't forced. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She simply cared. At one point, Lily ran off to climb the slide, leaving David and Emily standing together for a few moments. David felt awkward, but he finally spoke. "You seem to have a way with her," he said. Emily smiled and shrugged. "Kids just need someone to listen." That's all. David thought about her words. Simple, but true. Listening was something he often failed at. Especially with Lily. He always assumed buying her what she wanted was enough. But Emily's way of giving attention cost nothing and meant everything. Lily came running back, grabbing Emily's hand as if it belonged to her. "Will you stay longer, please?" she begged. David looked at Emily, waiting for her answer. Emily hesitated, glancing at her watch. "I have to get back to work soon," she said, "but I can stay a little while." So she stayed, and the three of them walked around the park together. David noticed how naturally Emily slipped into conversation with Lily. She asked her about school, her favorite colors, what games she liked. Lily answered eagerly, her small hand swinging in Emily's. David walked beside them, quiet, realizing he was the outsider in this moment. When Emily finally stood up to leave, Lily's face fell. "Do you have to go?" she asked. Emily nodded gently. "I do, sweetheart. I have to work. But maybe I'll see you again." Lily hugged her tightly before letting go. David thanked her again, his voice softer this time. "You've been very kind," he said. Emily gave him a small smile. "It's nothing. She's a wonderful little girl. You're lucky." Those words struck David harder than he expected. He was lucky, yes. But had he been acting like it? He wasn't so sure. Over the next few days, the same thing kept happening. Whenever David brought Lily to the park, Emily seemed to appear. Sometimes she was on her break. Sometimes she just walked by. And each time, Lily ran to her as though she were a long-lost friend. Emily never turned her away. She always stopped, always gave Lily her full attention. David started asking Emily more questions. He learned she worked long hours at the diner and that she lived with her younger brother, whom she was helping put through school. Life wasn't easy for her, but she never complained. She always had a smile, always carried herself with quiet strength. David, who was used to people chasing his money, noticed something different about her. She never once asked what he did for a living. She never hinted at wanting anything from him. She treated him like any other parent in the park, which was rare for a man like him. Most people either tried to flatter him or avoided him altogether. Emily did neither. What surprised him most was how much Lily adored her. Every time they left the park, Lily would chatter all the way home about Emily, how funny she was, how nice she was, how much she wanted to see her again. David listened quietly, realizing his daughter had found something he had not been able to give her: warmth without distraction. The bond between Emily and Lily grew so quickly that it left David uneasy. But at the same time, he couldn't deny the comfort it brought his daughter. For the first time in a long time, Lily seemed truly content, and though he would never admit it out loud, David himself was beginning to look forward to seeing Emily too. Days began to follow a pattern David had never expected. Lily would ask almost every morning if they could go to the park, and David, who once thought playgrounds were a waste of his time, found himself saying yes more often than no. At first, he told himself he was only doing it for Lily's happiness. But deep down, he knew there was another reason. Each time they went, there was the chance they would run into Emily again, and strangely, he found himself looking forward to that. Lily would always run ahead with excitement, scanning the park to see if Emily was there. When she spotted her, her whole face lit up, and she would sprint across the grass, calling her name. Emily would greet her like family, kneeling down to hug her as if they had known each other for years. Sometimes Emily carried a little snack from the diner, an extra cookie, a piece of fruit which she shared with Lily. Small things. But to Lily, they felt like treasures. David would sit nearby, quietly observing. He had started to put his phone away more often, noticing how quickly Lily's laughter grew louder when Emily was around. He began to feel as though he was watching a different version of his daughter, one that was happier, freer, more talkative. And as much as he hated to admit it, he felt a little jealous. One afternoon, when Lily was busy building a sandcastle with Emily, David finally asked her some questions. He wanted to understand who this woman was who had walked so effortlessly into his daughter's heart. "You work at that diner on the corner?" he asked casually. Emily nodded, brushing sand off her hands. "Yeah, been there for a couple of years now. It's not the best job, but it pays the bills." David tilted his head. "You must work long hours. Double shifts most days," Emily admitted. "I don't really have a choice. My younger brother is in high school, and I want him to have better opportunities. I cover the rent, the groceries, and everything else. It's not easy, but he's worth it." David studied her face as she spoke. There was no bitterness, no self-pity. She spoke with simple honesty, as if these struggles were just part of life, and she had accepted them. For a man who lived in a world where people constantly complained about little inconveniences, this was unusual. "Don't you ever get tired?" he asked. Emily laughed softly. "Of course I do. But life doesn't pause because I'm tired. And besides, I like helping people. That's what keeps me going." Those words stayed with David. Helping people. It was such a simple idea, yet it carried more weight than most of the speeches he heard in his boardrooms. Over the following weeks, David noticed more about Emily. She never showed any interest in his wealth. She didn't ask questions about his car, his clothes, or his expensive watch. In fact, she seemed to treat him as if he were just any other man sitting on a park bench with his daughter. That was rare. Most people either stared at him with awe or tried to use him for something. But Emily seemed uninterested in all of that. Her only focus was Lily. Lily adored her completely. She told Emily about school projects, about the books she liked, even about the dreams she had at night. Emily listened with patience, never interrupting, never brushing her off. She asked questions, made jokes, and gave Lily her full attention. David couldn't remember the last time he had done that himself. His daughter's stories often blended into the background of his busy mind, but Emily treated them like they were the most important thing in the world. One afternoon, as they all sat together, Lily was drawing in the sand with a stick. Emily leaned closer to David and said, "She's such a bright girl. You must be proud." "I am," David replied quietly. "You should be," Emily said warmly. "She's full of life. Don't let work steal too much of your time from her." Kids grow fast. The words hit him harder than he expected. Strangers didn't usually give him advice, but Emily's tone wasn't sharp or judgmental. It was gentle. It's almost like she truly cared not only for Lily, but for him as a father. David found himself thinking about Emily long after they left the park. He thought about her smile, her calmness, the way she carried herself despite her struggles. He compared it to his world, where everything was about competition, money, and power. Emily's world was harder, but somehow simpler, and maybe even richer in a way his billions could never buy. As the days passed, David began joining in the games. Sometimes he pushed Lily on the swings, while Emily clapped and encouraged her. Other times, the three of them would sit together, sharing small stories. David was surprised to discover that he liked these moments. He liked seeing his daughter so joyful. He liked hearing Emily laugh one evening, after a long day at the office. David found himself driving past the diner where Emily worked. He slowed his car and glanced inside. Through the window, he saw her moving quickly between tables, balancing trays, smiling at customers, even though her eyes looked tired. He didn't go in, but something stirred in him. He realized how little he understood about the daily struggles ordinary people faced. He realized, too, how much respect he felt for her. Back at home, Lily asked if they could go to the park again the next day. She spoke about Emily as if she were already part of their family. "Daddy," Emily said. She might teach me how to bake cookies. Can we invite her over? She asked eagerly. David didn't answer right away. He wasn't sure how to explain to his daughter that life didn't usually work like that. People didn't just walk into a billionaire's world. Yet in his heart, he felt the same pull. Emily had already walked into their lives in a way neither of them had expected. The truth was becoming clearer each day. Emily was not like anyone David had ever met. She didn't want his money. She didn't want favors. She gave something far more rare, genuine kindness. And though he tried to fight it, David could not ignore the feeling growing inside him. He admired her. He also felt something else, a quiet shame. For years he had thought his wealth could cover every need his daughter had. But watching Emily with Lily showed him the truth. Love, time, and attention mattered more than all the toys, clothes, and vacations he could buy. Every time he saw Emily's simple care, every time he saw Lily's joy, the billionaire father realized he had something to learn, not about business, but about being human. And he knew the lesson was only just beginning. One bright Saturday morning, David decided to take Lily to the park again. Over the past few weeks, this routine had become something he looked forward to, though he would never admit it out loud. Lily, as usual, ran ahead as soon as they arrived, her eyes scanning the playground for Emily. She spotted her near the swings and shouted excitedly, sprinting toward her new friend. Emily's face lit up when she saw Lily, and she dropped her small bag to kneel down. Greeting her with a warm hug, David followed slowly, noticing how naturally the two connected. This time, he walked up to Emily more confidently. He had learned a little about her life from previous conversations, and he wanted to know more. As Lily ran off to climb the slide, David finally spoke. "You have a lot of patience with her," he said. Emily laughed softly. "She's an amazing little girl. How could I not?" David nodded, feeling a strange mix of admiration and humility. He realized that while he had all the money in the world, he often lacked the patience and care that Emily showed so effortlessly. Lily came back and pulled Emily toward the swings. "Push me, please," she begged. Emily agreed immediately, her hands steady as she pushed Lily higher and higher. Lily squealed with delight, and David watched with a soft smile. It was a simple moment, but it touched him deeply. After swinging for a while, Lily sat down next to Emily and began chattering about her week. She told her about a project at school, about a drawing she had made, and even about a dream she had, where she flew over a city in a pink dress. Emily listened to every word, nodding and laughing at the right moments. David noticed how carefully she listened, how her attention never wavered. He had never realized how important it was to truly listen to his daughter, not just hear her words. When it was time for a break, they all sat under a tree. David, surprisingly, joined in the conversation. He asked Emily about her family and how she managed to work so many hours at the diner while still finding time to be kind and attentive to Lily. Emily smiled gently and explained that her younger brother was her motivation. She wanted him to have better opportunities, and she did everything she could to support him. She also added that spending time with Lily made her feel happy in a way that was different from her work, like seeing a little spark of joy she could help. Nurtured, David listened quietly, absorbing every word. He realized that Emily's life was much harder than his, yet she carried it with grace. She had no complaints, no bitterness. Her struggles had made her kind, patient, and understanding, qualities that money could never buy. After their conversation, Lily tugged at Emily's hand. "Can we get ice cream?" she asked eagerly. David hesitated for a moment. Normally, he would have said no or delegated it to a staff member. But today, he decided to say yes. He watched as Emily's face brightened, and together they walked to a small ice cream cart at the edge of the park. As they ate their ice cream, David observed Emily closely. She interacted with Lily as if she were part of the family, not as a visitor or a stranger. She asked Lily about her favorite flavors, told funny stories from her own childhood, and even made silly faces to make Lily laugh. David felt a warmth in his chest he hadn't felt in years. It was a simple moment, but it meant more to him than any business deal ever could. When the ice cream was finished, Emily checked her watch. "I should get going," she said, her voice gentle. Lily's face fell. "Do you have to leave?" she asked softly. Emily nodded. "I do, sweetheart, but I'll see you again soon." She knelt down and hugged Lily tightly, brushing her hair back from her face. David watched the scene, feeling a mixture of gratitude and something he couldn't quite name. He wanted to thank her again, not just for being kind to Lily, but for showing him something he had been missing: simple, genuine human connection. Later that evening, David couldn't stop thinking about Emily. He watched Lily sleeping peacefully and realized how much her presence had changed the girl. She was happier, calmer, more confident. David thought about how little he had actually given Lily beyond material things. Emily had given her attention, patience, and care, the things money couldn't buy. The next day, David made a decision. He drove past the diner where Emily worked, wanting to see her again, but also unsure how to approach her. When he walked in, the staff and customers were surprised to see him. He didn't come to flaunt his wealth or demand attention. He simply asked for Emily and thanked her, humbly and sincerely, for the kindness she had shown his daughter. Emily looked shocked but smiled, saying it had been her pleasure. David spent a few moments talking to her, learning more about her life and her family. He found out about the long hours she worked, the challenges she faced supporting her brother, and her simple dreams for a better future. He realized how much resilience and strength she had, and he respected her deeply for it. Over the following weeks, David began inviting Emily into their lives more intentionally. He arranged small opportunities for her, like helping her brother with school, or offering support so she could have more time for herself. He didn't want to overwhelm her or make her feel obligated, but he wanted to show his gratitude and recognition for the positive impact she had on Lily. Lily, of course, was thrilled. She began referring to Emily as her park friend or special friend, and David noticed how much lighter and happier his daughter seemed. Emily became a consistent presence in their lives, not just at the park but in small, meaningful ways. She taught Lily simple things, like sharing, patience, and kindness. While David observed and learned silently, through all of this, David himself began to change. He noticed how small gestures of care could have a larger impact than any grand gift. He saw that his daughter's happiness wasn't tied to wealth or luxury, but to genuine attention and affection. Emily had shown him the difference, and he was grateful. One evening, as they all walked home from the park, Lily holding Emily's hand and David walking beside them, he realized that life was more than business deals and money. It was about moments like these, moments of connection, kindness, and love. Emily had taught him that lesson in a way no one else could. David also began to think about the future. He wanted Emily and her family to have stability and opportunities. He wanted Lily to grow up surrounded by genuine kindness and strong role models. And he knew that Emily could be a part of that. But more than that, he wanted to be a better father, one who could provide not only material things, but also emotional support and presence. By the end of that week, David had made another quiet decision. He would continue to support Emily, not with flashy gifts or grand gestures, but in ways that truly mattered, helping her family, giving her time, and valuing her presence in Lily's life. He realized that the richest gifts in life weren't things you could buy. They were care, kindness, and attention, the very things Emily had freely given his daughter. And so, a simple act at the park, a hug after a fall, had begun to change everything. David's world, once filled with wealth and business, was opening to something new. He began to understand that the lessons Emily taught Lily were lessons he needed to learn too. It was a slow, quiet transformation, but it was real, and it was only just beginning. David had learned many lessons over the past few weeks, lessons that no money, no luxury, and no power could ever teach him. He had seen how a simple act of kindness from a stranger could change his daughter's day, and over time, even change the way he thought about life. That Saturday morning, as he and Lily drove to the park, he felt a quiet excitement. He wasn't just going for Lily's sake anymore. He was curious about Emily and the bond she had formed with his daughter. When they arrived, Lily bolted ahead, scanning the park as usual. David followed more slowly, enjoying the sight of his daughter's joyful energy. And there she was, Emily, sitting under a tree, sipping water from a bottle and watching a small group of children play nearby. Lily's eyes sparkled when she saw her, and she ran to Emily with open arms. Emily's face lit up, and she hugged Lily tightly. Laughing softly at her enthusiasm, David watched quietly as the two of them interacted. Lily's laughter was louder, brighter, and freer around Emily than it ever was with him. David realized it wasn't because he was a bad father, it was because he often got caught up in work, schedules, and in the endless obligations of wealth. Emily gave Lily something he couldn't: full attention, care, and a warm heart, as they played together. Emily noticed David watching and smiled. "Would you like to join us?" she asked. David hesitated for a moment, but then nodded. He had started to learn that real connections required participation, not observation. He walked over, and together, the three of them played small games: catch, running races, and even building a sandcastle. Emily guided Lily with patience, showing her how to shape the sand, encouraging her to be creative, and praising every small effort. David noticed how much Lily admired Emily. She listened to every word Emily said and followed her instructions eagerly. He began to reflect on his own parenting. How often had he been too busy for such moments? How often had he thought a gift or a fancy outing could replace genuine attention? Watching Emily, he realized that the most important lessons in life were not about wealth, but about care, empathy, and kindness. After a while, Emily suggested they take a break. They all sat under the shade of a large tree, sharing small snacks. Lily chattered endlessly about school, her friends, and the stories she loved, while Emily listened patiently, laughing at her jokes and asking gentle questions. David felt something shift inside him. He began to participate in the conversation, asking Lily questions and even sharing a small story from his own childhood, a rare moment of openness. When the break ended, Emily stood to leave. Lily immediately looked disappointed. "Do you have to go?" she asked softly. Emily knelt down and hugged her one more time. "I do," she said, "but I promise we'll see each other again soon." David stepped forward. "Emily," he said, his voice steady but gentle, "I want to thank you. Not just for Lily today, but for the way you've shown her kindness and care." "It means more than I can say," Emily smiled, a little surprised. "You don't have to thank me," she said. "It's my pleasure. She's a wonderful little girl." But David insisted. He wanted to do more than just thank her with words. He realized that Emily's life was hard, and her care for his daughter came from her heart, not obligation. He wanted to support her in a way that truly mattered. Over the next few days, David quietly began making plans. He arranged for Emily's younger brother to receive a scholarship, so she wouldn't have to work herself into exhaustion to provide for him. He contacted the diner manager and made small arrangements to ease Emily's schedule. Giving her a little more free time to rest or spend with Lily, he didn't give her money directly, because he didn't want her to feel obligated. Instead, he provided opportunities, ways for her life to be a little easier, safer, and more promising. When David shared some of these surprises with Emily, she was taken aback. She had never expected anything from him and had never even considered that a billionaire would take an interest in helping someone like her. But she appreciated his gestures quietly, humbly, and without fanfare. She continued to care for Lily the same way she always had, and David admired her even more for it. Lily, of course, was thrilled. She saw Emily as a hero, a role model, and a friend. She often insisted that Emily join them at home for small activities like baking cookies or drawing. Emily, while cautious, agreed to some of these invitations, enjoying the moments she spent with Lily and quietly observing the changes in David as well. David himself began to change. He saw the world differently, noticing the struggles of ordinary people, and understanding how much effort and resilience went into simple acts of survival and kindness. Emily had opened his eyes to this. He began to value people for their character rather than their wealth or status. One evening, as David watched Lily asleep in her bed, he reflected on the changes in their lives. The small act of a hug at the playground had started a ripple effect. Emily's kindness had brought more happiness, warmth, and connection into their lives than any gift he had ever bought. And he realized that this was the type of richness that mattered most, a richness of love, care, and genuine human connection. He also thought about the future. He wanted Emily to continue being part of Lily's life, not because he could buy her loyalty, but because she had earned a place in their hearts. He wanted Lily to grow up with role models who taught her the value of kindness, hard work, and patience. And he knew that Emily, with her humble strength and loving heart, was exactly the person to help shape those lessons. Over time, Emily became more than just a friend to Lily. She became family. She celebrated birthdays, helped with school projects, and even shared small celebrations for holidays. David noticed how Lily's confidence and joy grew, how she learned to care for others, and how she developed a sense of empathy that David knew would stay with her forever. David also began to enjoy his time differently. He joined Lily and Emily in small adventures, not extravagant trips, but simple moments like visiting the park, cooking together, or exploring the city. He learned that true happiness didn't come from wealth alone, but from shared experiences, laughter, and care. Through Emily's presence, David learned to slow down, to notice the small things, and to cherish moments that could not be measured in money. He realized that parenting wasn't about providing everything, but about being present, listening, and showing love through action. The transformation was gradual but profound. Lily thrived in the love and attention she received from both her father and Emily. David grew into a more patient, compassionate man, understanding that the richness of life was measured not by material possessions, but by the warmth and kindness one shared. By the end of that year, David reflected on how one small act, a hug from a waitress in the park, had changed so many lives. Emily had brought joy to his daughter, humility and understanding to him, and had reminded him of the beauty in simple human connections. David knew that he would never forget the lessons Emily had taught him. He understood that true wealth was not in his bank account, but in the love, kindness, and care that people shared freely with one another. And in the heart of his home, with Lily sleeping peacefully and Emily becoming an irreplaceable part of their lives, David finally felt the kind of happiness he had spent a lifetime searching for.